I'm going to kick it off here so we can get rolling. It's 2:02. Welcome, everybody. I'm Gardner Hatch. I'm the new executive director for NAFB, and welcome, everybody. I'm just looking at the people who have joined here. I know a lot of you, a lot of familiar faces and names. There are a lot of you who I don't know, and I'm looking forward to meeting with you in person at some of the upcoming meetings that we have. Speaking of upcoming meetings, we have a great one planned for July 15th in St. Louis, particularly if you're in the St. Louis area. I encourage you to attend our summer agribusiness event and dinner, which is on Tuesday, Monday, July 15th in St. Louis. So you can't miss it. We have a great program planned, and watch for our e-blast going out about that, about the program. So, coming into this position, one of our priorities is to provide all members with the resources and education they need to do their jobs effectively. And one of the priorities of NAFB is really to prove the value of farm radio. We got to prove it. We got to prove it every day. And this research that Anita is going to present here really does that. There's some great information in here about listener habits and how and when farmers and ranchers and rural audiences are listening to farm radio. We do have, as you watch this, think about what we may be missing, because this is timely. We have research that we're planning for 2025. And one of the things that we want to do is dig deeper into particularly the relationship that farmers have with farm radio, and even exploring a little bit more into the engagement and actions that farmers have and as they listen to farm radio. So what are they doing after they hear something on farm radio? We want to dig deeper into that. So that's coming up in 2025, and we would love to have your input on that and some of the things that we should be exploring. Whether you can ask that question here in this webinar or shoot Anita or myself a note. We want to make sure that we're providing the resources and the research that's going to help you sell radio. So with that, I want to remind everybody, if you could, to mute your microphones if you're not asking a question. And I'm going to turn it over to Anita Vanderwert. She is the chair of the Marketing and Promotions Committee for NAFB, and she's going to go through some of the top line results of the 2023 listenership survey. So Anita, I'll turn it over to you, and I will mute my microphone.
All right. Thanks, Gardner. I appreciate that. We so appreciate having you on board. I'm going to have to keep admitting people, I think. We're so appreciate having you on board and that you've actually started with us. We know it was a little time in transition, so it's nice to know that we now have you at the helm of our organization. As you mentioned, we have looked at the RFP respondents. Those we did send out an RFP. To give you a quick background on our research, we do research. NAFB does research, third-party research every odd year. So 21, 23. What we did last year was with Aimpoint Research. They also did the survey in 2021. We did an RFP asking for people to see if they wanted to submit to try to figure out what our research is going to look like for 2025. We have gotten the responses back, and we've told them, we don't want to just keep repeating what we've done in the past. We want to kind of look at different areas more on engagement and the pathway to purchase and what that looks like and how radio plays into that. So we're looking forward to hearing and having discussions with each of them. If there are specific areas, as Gardner said, that you want us to make sure we focus on, of course, a lot of it, as we all know, will be how radio complements digital. We want to dig into that area a little deeper and get more clarity on how that relationship works. We know it works. We just don't have the proof behind it, and we need to get more statistics in that area. So that'll be a big area for us. So our goal in 2024 on the even years is to then go out and talk about what we have done for research the prior year. In 2023, summertime, we did a qualitative research and we talked to farmers on surveys. Then in the fall, we did that backwards. The summer, we did the quantitative, and qualitative we did in the fall. So they we got all the results together the end of fall, and they released them to us the first part of 2024. Sometimes you'll see that there's some questions on some of the slides where it has 2022 instead of 21 or 2024 on the slides instead of 2023. The research was conducted in 2023. It didn't get to us until 2024. So that'll be one thing to keep in mind on the slide deck. You can see the slide deck on the NAFB site. So a lot of these slides are there for you to, looks like we still have some people that aren't muted. So we do have it on the slide deck. So the idea there is for your salespeople just to be able to pull that into their decks and to be able to use the research in a very user-friendly way. And hopefully we'll build on that and have a lot more slides for you to use as we continue this journey. Okay, enough about 2023. Am I loud enough? Okay.
Loud and clear.
Okay, we're not, Gardner, we're back to where we were before we started. It's not going through. You guys can still see this, correct?
We can see it. It's not advancing though.
No, it's not on my end either. Okay. Well, what you want to try to take it over again and try to share it with me again?
Yep.
Because it's,
Yep.
Let's try that. Maybe it
Okay.
stayed on too long.
All right.
I'll stop shares and then bring it back.
Okay, I'm on slide 2 here. Oops. Okay, can everyone see that? Is it large enough?
Looks good, Gardner.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to mute.
And are you going to share? Because I can't move through that.
I can't, I'm gonna have to advance it.
You know
I'm
what?
gonna-
Let's try this and see if this will work.
When we stop sharing?
Oh, I think we're back on. I think I've got it.
Okay.
Whatever miracle you did on the second time, it worked.
All
Okay,
right.
so 2023 aim point research. We did the research to examine the habits and practices of those who regularly consume ag radio to inform future strategies for sales and programming as well. So that's the overall objectives of the program. I'm going to have to admit. All right, study summary 357. And guys, as we're going along here, if you see somebody up there that needs to be admitted, because I assume you can see my screen, let me know, because they'll be waiting there forever if I start rolling. 357 phone interviews during the summer of 2023. These were a nationwide sample of decision makers on operations 100,000 plus gross farm income that regularly consume ag radio. Oh, for the love of God. Gardner, we're going to have to go back one more time. It is not giving it to me any length of time. It's not letting me forward.
So you can't forward it on your end. Okay. Why don't I just advance it from
Okay.
my end? Okay.
Sounds like a plan. There's always another way around this. I even went into headquarters to make sure that we could do this smoothly.
That's why you always have a plan B. Okay, here we go.
All right, go to the next slide. Yes. So this research is broken out into several sections. The first one we're going to go through is content and consumption. And you'll see that farm radio is the daily source of ag news. This is one of our historical questions we have asked several years, trying to make sure that we are still the daily source for ag news when it comes to farmers. In the past, we have always ranked the highest. We need to make sure that we continue to be the farmer's daily source of ag news. And sure enough, fortunately, we're still leading the pack there with the daily source of ag news. It's Ag Farm Radio coming in at 63%. You can see it's followed by Ag Farm Television and publications, then blogs and online sources down below. But this is for the recent survey. This is 2023. It does pretty much mirror what we already knew, but it just validates what we It validates what we have already been told, and what just reinforces that, yes, when it comes to daily source for news, markets, and weather, that farmers are relying on radio. Give me another one. All right. Sources of farm news. Those who regularly listen to ag radio are also engaged in other media channels. So it's not saying, even though radio is the #1 daily source for farm news, that's not saying that people are consuming less media. It's saying they're actually consuming more media over more different channels. When it comes to ag farm publications, came in #2, and ag related websites followed that. So ag broadcast radio is the #1 source for farm news among listeners, but they aren't listening to less news and markets and information. It's like anything, radio hasn't been replaced. Radio is stronger than ever. It's just they're actually consuming a lot more news and content from a lot more sources, as you'll see later on in the slide. All right, qualitative insights. We have some qualitative insights here, trying to figure out a little deeper into the farmers that we had one-on-one discussions with, not me, but Aimpoint. And we had some great quotes. This one is a farmer from Illinois, as he doesn't go anywhere with turning on his radio in the truck. He still likes to listen to his local radio stations for news, markets, and weather, and their spin on it. So listeners, farmers do rely on a wide range of sources: news, radio, podcasts, social media. They connect in a lot of different ways to leverage these resources so they stay informed and gain knowledge about their farming practices. For a lot of our farmers, this is their livelihood. So they are trying to get as knowledgeable as they can on every facet of their operation. Listeners look to ag radio for information that directly impacts their operation. News, markets, and weather, as we have done historically, and we always know when farmers want information, it's news, markets, and weather, and that was a highlight again this year, saying that, yes, we own that space when it comes to news, markets, and weather, and they rely on farm radio for those. And it doesn't matter what the age of the operator is, the farmer, or the gross farm income, or the operation size. This is saying next generation farmers listen to radio. There's always been discussion going, are the younger people still listening to AM, FM radio? And yes, they are. And this slide proves it. Always interesting that next gen, when it comes to the farming ag publication world, it's 49 and under. So 49 and unders listening to radio the same amount of time as those 50 plus. They listen equally throughout the day. This is one of the slides that I love. We did put in a little bit of AMR here, and this is from the AMR research that ag radio is the #1 weekly platform. We already talked about daily. Daily, farmers know that radio rocks it, but they're also listening every week, and larger growers especially. 92.5% of all 500 plus acre farmers are listening to their favorite local radio station each week. In fact, that's almost 33% are listening at any given time. The reason this is so important is, think about that. Any given time, Monday through Friday, 5 a.m. to 7 p.m., any 15-minute increment, you're going to reach 32.9% are listening to a radio station. Large operations, this breaks it down a little more specific. So you can see across the bottom lower right, we have wheat producers, we have corn, and we have soybeans. So it breaks it out a little differently, but doesn't matter how you break it out. You can still see that percent listening at any time is still almost a third of all of the farmers, and listening each week, 90% to 92.8%. It's 90% and a third. That's impressive, because there aren't many media that can come out and come close to what we can reach when it comes to farm radio. Qualitative insights. Here we go again. A farmer from South Dakota. Broadcasters are my trusted friends. I truly believe that they want to tell you the true story, the right story, without any bias. So we're going to talk a little bit about trust and farmers, how they trust and rely on their farm broadcasters. I've been in the farm broadcasting business for decades now, and I can tell you farmers love their local farm broadcasters. They like seeing them at events. They like following them around. They believe and trust in their local farm broadcasters, and this survey brought that out and highlighted it quite well. There's an appreciation for farm broadcasters' role in sharing market updates and global events, and farmers trust what their local farm broadcasters are telling them. Farm broadcasters dramatically outperform national news networks, NBC, CBS, in the areas of credibility, accuracy, and timeliness. And it's broken down, if you look on the bottom right-hand side, whether you're 18 to 54, credible, 66% of the 18 to 54-year-olds said, yes, I think my ag broadcaster is credible, provides timely information at 64, and then accurate, 73. I love the fact that accuracy is the highest category when it comes to it's accurate, it's credible, it's timely. Farm broadcasters are trusted friends, and you can see that when it comes to farmers. The next section is advertising effectiveness. This is what I love, and we're going to dig much deeper into this. Ag radio drives listeners online, and this got the very broad stroke of saying, how is radio working with digital? And they did a nice job because they started it off with, so now we have a place to build upon, that 58% of all farm radio listeners have visited a website after hearing a message on the radio. Granted, the creative still has to pique their interest. It has to be something that they're going to find of interest. But if you get your message on the radio and pique their interest, they're going to go online and dig deeper. It's even higher for farmers 18 to 54 at 71%. Keep in mind, if farmers, we have talked to farmers in the field and at webinars, not just Brownfield, but all the broadcasters across the United States are with their farmers. They know their farmers know them. And in discussions, farmers will always tell you, if it's something that I hear on the radio, I'll grab my pad, I'll write it down. At night, I'll go look it up. It's real. We know farmers are doing it, and we're going to dig into that even deeper. So this is one of my favorite slides.
I just want to, if I may, just echo this one too, Anita. I think this is the most important slide of the whole presentation, because this is showing action and engagement as a result of what listeners are listening to or hearing from the farm broadcaster and the programming. And as you said, we're going to dig into this deeper. And but this is really key. This has been the missing link, I think, for a long time.
71% farmers 1854. 71% visit websites after hearing that.
Okay, so Kaczynski and Bost just put out.
Gotta love this. Okay, let's try to go to the next slide. Unless somebody has a question or something that you want to talk about. I'm more than. Okay. So we broke this down into a little more. And the question on this one was, okay, so what areas, if you're listening to farm radio, where did you?
Whoa.
Hey, and Anita, this is Kara. I think you might be able to, on your end or Gardner's end, mute everyone and then unmute yourselves so you can continue.
I can't. Roger or Gardner, you started this, so you're going to have to. We can roll on. So Ag Farm Radio, 62%, Ag Farm Publications, more likely to visit a website after hearing about it on the radio to access digital and non-digital news sources. So non-digital news sources are still effective and are still out there. So they don't just go online to learn more. They actually, once they hear it on the radio, they're going to non-digital sources as well. Farm publications, blogs, websites, social media, online forums. Listening habits is the next section. So when it comes to listening habits, traditional AM, FM radios have extensive reach throughout farming operations. We know this. We've been on farms all our lives. Our broadcasters have grown up on farms. It's in the truck, it's in the tractor, it's in the combine, it's in the shop. Radio is with farmers. Love this slide because more than half of those surveyed said they had, if they had to count, they had more than 20 radios on their farm when they started counting up all the radios. If you look to the lower right-hand side, interesting as well, AM, FM radio still rocks this world at 89% is the type of radio used for farm news. It's AM, FM radio at 89%, 27% with streaming radio. And you can see where to listen to ag radio. Your You did that perfectly, Gardner. Radio rules on the farm, and this breaks out that same slide a little differently, showing that over half of the listeners' operations had 20 plus radios, and average listeners contained 11, and that they're listening to it everywhere, equipment, house, shop, as I mentioned. They rely on radio throughout. Okay, sorry guys. Ag radio gives immediate information that's easily accessible in a way that no other media can provide. A lot of times over the past however many years, they're saying, you know, we only believe in radio when they're planting and when they're harvesting. So we dug deeper into this saying, oh, wait a minute. Farmers are outside all the time. Farmers turn on the radio in the morning. We know this. So is it really just listening to the messages during planting and harvest, or is it year long? And this was the slide from Aimpoint 2 years ago. So this is an old slide that I still think is incredibly relevant. They didn't do a follow-up on this one this last couple of years, that farmers are using radio. Doesn't matter what time of year, whether it's the winter, spring, summer, fall, farmers are still relying on radio. On-air ag radio is a major part of a listener's weekday routine. 83% say they listen 5+ days a week. 83% saying, yeah, we listen over 5 days a week. We're listening to my AM, FM radio. For ag programming, 5 days plus per week. Time of day, listen to ag radio program. The other thing, it shows that yes, we do skew more 6 a.m., 9 a.m. in early morning hours, but it still stays strong all the way through 4 p.m. 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. You're still going to reach the farmers, as it's not just one specific part of the day, just like it's not just one season. Farmers are using radio throughout the day, all year long. There was something on that other side that good enough. Digital media channels. Let's do our last section. This is giving you some more background on listeners and how Aimpoint broke this out, that they're using digital media channels to gather ag-based information. They wanted to say, okay, how much are they going to YouTube for ag information? Yes, Corey, we can. And it is already on the NAFB website page for the research, so you can pull those slides if you would like to use those. So listeners, when it comes to YouTube, only 15% is all ag related when they go to YouTube on the survey's respondents, but most ag related, you'll see there's 46% of the content that they look at on YouTube is primarily or most ag related. When it comes to YouTube and podcasts, it's 30% is most ag related, but you'll see that there's 30% that that's not ag. Podcast, 30% is all ag related. So it breaks out pretty evenly on the podcast on being all ag related, most ag related, half or less ag related, much more so than the YouTube content. Younger listeners are more engaged in digital media channels than their seasoned counterparts. I'm just going to guess that you're not going to be overly surprised by that. Nice thing is, it's not saying they aren't using radio. It just says they're more engaged over a wider variety of digital media channels. And this is broken out between 18 to 44 to 45 plus. Use social media for ag info. 63% of the younger group is using social media for ag information. Well, 45 plus, it's down to 38%. This, of course, is where it reverses. And I'm not saying that I'm shocked. But 18 to 44, 38% use television and 62% use television for ag information on the 45 plus area. 44% for podcast, and 28% of those 45 plus have listened to an ag-related podcast in the past month. And you can see on down, regularly watch ag-related YouTube content and streaming. Farmer radio listeners, digital media usage. And this is breaking it down just like we had, so I'm not sure why we had the same slide in there twice. Podcast listenership. This is again from a survey that was not Aimpoint. This was Edison research in 2023, and it was for the fourth quarter of 2023. So the same time frame that when Aimpoint was tallying up and getting all the results from their survey, Edison research came out with podcast listenership, showing urban dwellers exhibit a stronger inclination toward podcasts, spending 13% of their daily audio time on this format, more than double seen among the rural listeners, who are just at 6% of their time is dedicated to podcasts. Key findings and recommendations. Ag radio is a trusted source for commodity prices, and among listeners tuning into Ag radio in the morning, it's a key part of their daily routine. One of them said, I start the coffee, I turn on the radio. It's what I do. Broadcast or Ag radio's widespread physical presence on the farm gives it a competitive advantage because they're everywhere. As we talked about, 20 plus radios on over half of the survey respondents on each operation. Digital online media consumption of Ag content through YouTube and podcasts is more prevalent among younger farmers, and Ag radio drives engagement with websites. Continue to focus. So their recommendations, this is more for NAFB, continue to focus on news, markets, and weather. Focus ad sales message on broadcast unique reach and the routine nature of its listenership, and be mindful that younger listeners are engaging in more types of media. So it's not that they're decreasing the amount of time they're spending on radio, but they're consuming media from a wide array of choices. I think we have a few more slides here just as some backup. Farmer in Ohio, sometimes guys like me are working in the shop or you're in the tractor, wondering if you're the only one having the problems or facing the challenges you're facing. Then you turn on the radio and you hear other people talking about the same problems. It gives me comfort to know I'm not alone in the advice and information that helps me when I'm thinking about biologicals or whether I should use them or look up recent podcasts, broadcasts, or articles. So farmer from Ohio, again, he likes knowing that the radio's with him and he can find out more of what other people and if they're talking about and if they're having some of the same issues that he's having. He's not alone out there in the field. You guys with the farm broadcasters, you're with your farmers and they do rely on you. Current environment. This tells you that radios are losing 2 newspapers per week. Since 2005, over a quarter of the newspapers have been permanently shut down, and a third is on track to lose 1/3 of its newspapers by 2025. Not that that's necessarily good. I'm an ag journalist, so I like the news that's out there, but this is what we're dealing with. And it is having an impact on local radio because now your local radio is the place people are going to get what's happening in their local community once the newspapers died. They have to rely on their local radio station to tell them who's died, school lunches, whatever it is, it's the local radio station is where they're getting their local news as newspapers disappear.
Anita, I think the rest is just additional data.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to dig into if there's anything here you want to dig into. Or...
Oh, there's a couple slides. Let's just real quick. This just talks about broadcast radio, satellite radio listenership, saying most of it's in passenger vehicles. That's not that surprising. 81% are in ag equipment is more AM, FM radios than satellite radio. Go on to the next one. This is saying that satellite radio, they dug into some satellite radio thinking that there'd be some more scoop here, saying they purchased and listened, 30% pay for satellite radio subscription, 22% listen to satellite radio for ag news. I think there's something else coming up. Oh, audience sample, that just gives on who the audience was and where they were living. It's still primarily a male audience when it comes to farmers. In their research Aimpoint, we did not dictate this. They kind of look at NAS numbers, National Association of National Ag Statistics, National Ag Statistics Service. Yes, National Ag Statistics Service. And then they just did a percentage from NASS. So you get location and gender. I think that's it, isn't it?
Yep, that's it.
Okay. I'm going to turn it back over to you.
All right. We do have some questions here in the chat. We can we could post a link to the PowerPoint. I think the one that's on, I think we had the pretty much the same information is on the NAFB website, but we can certainly follow up with that link.
Yeah, and this is the same presentation that was given at NAMA.
Yeah.
It's just, this was given at NAMA on Wednesday morning before the conference really got started.
Yep.
And we do want to go out and present this in more places as Gardner is figuring out summer travel schedules and budgets. We will have a plan in place here shortly. Did you see that from Debbie?
Yeah, actually, we'll take an action here, Debbie, and everybody. We'll send out, we can send out this, the deck. I do think there are a few different slides that you added in here, Anita.
Yeah, the Ag Media
online.
Research ones and the Edison research for podcasts as well. But
Yeah,
I think there's only like 3 or 4 of them.
yeah. So we can send this deck out to those of you who participated for sure. And as Anita said, we are scheduling. One of the things as I start this position is starting to schedule some meetings with companies and agencies as we're in different locations. Anita, I've been working on St. Louis. I mentioned the St. Louis dinner that we have coming up in mid-July, and we want to also visit with a few agencies there in the St. Louis area, and we can kind of dig into this more deeply. But really, more importantly, is okay from this data, which I think is very compelling, as Anita does. Where do we go from here to prove even more the value of farm broadcasting and the actions that farmers and ranchers are taking when they hear something from their trusted farm broadcaster? Where are they going? How are they engaging with the content and the ads that are on farm radio? And that's something that we want to dig in more, because that's the data that everybody is looking for. As you know, as the advertising dollars are getting more tight, we gotta prove even more the value of what we're presenting here. So that is some of that. Those components are going to be investigated further into the research that we'll be doing in 2025, and then presenting probably later in 25 or 26, but that'll be coming in the next round. Does anybody have any questions on the research? Is there anything that's surprising to you about the research? Anything at this point that, you know what, I'd like to see more of this or that? As you're, looking around the room here, we have a wide variety of people in this meeting. Is there anything that you would like to see us explore more? To me, it's always been the trust factor, that broadcasters bring, that comes out more and more. The one compelling slide I think Anita showed was the lack of trust that that we all have in some of the national news. That a lot of it is biased, but what comes from the local farm broadcaster, even the farm broadcaster interpreting what's going on the national level and bringing that back down to to the local level, is very trusted, and that is so powerful. I don't know of any other market where you see that kind of trust factor come into play.
Hey Gardner, this is Kara Hart, and I'm just wanting to follow up. There was a slide in the presentation that Anita was giving that focused in on online. And you said this was really the slide that you wanted to build off of in the next round of research. What kind of questions have you guys talked about? What kind of questions you might ask in that, if that research dives deeper into that area?
I think that we haven't got down to the specific questions yet. We're still kind of working, on laying all that out, which is why we would like to get everybody's input. But I think, as all communications is getting more defined into, we're looking at clicks, we're looking at engagement on social media, and proving the worth of everything that all communications that we're doing, e-communications. We know how many people open a newsletter, for example. We know how many people, what they click on and where they're clicking to, and when they go to a website, where they're going and how long they're staying on a website. Can we bring some of that into kind of the farm broadcasting world so that we can show, okay, we know that farmers trust what they're hearing. We know that they trust what they're hearing on radio. And we have a little bit of insight as far as more than half of the listeners are doing something about it. They're checking things out on digital platforms. Can we look at what kind of engagement is that? Where are they going? Kind of how long they're staying on those sites when they make that transition. So it really gets down, Kara, to kind of the actions that they're taking and why they're taking those actions, and how that is also partnering with, as Anita said early on in this meeting, the digital space. How are they combining what they're hearing on radio? How are they combining it with the research that they're doing with in the digital space as they're researching new products or new companies, and engaging with companies and products? How is it mixed? How is it mixing with the digital world? Because everything that we're doing is in the digital space, and we know that the farm broadcasting communications is having an impact with that in the digital space. So we want to prove that. We want to show, what does the data show in that regard?
So one of the things, Kara, is we know that radio piques farmers' interest. We know that it can drive them to a website to learn more, but we'd like to be able to figure out engagement and engagement time, because that's the world we're living in now, is how much time did they spend with the radio consuming the media? And then what was that path to purchase? How did radio impact that path to purchase? What role did it play? Where did they go? What happened? What was the next step? So that's what we hope to be able to find a research partner that it really resonates what we're trying to prove and where it fits, or if it fits, but we just need to know, because we're being asked that in the front lines.
Thank you both.
You know, there's, having come from kind of the marketing world and the advertising world, you know, as companies are looking to launch new products, for example, you know, we have the customer journey, you know, that everybody works from. You know, kind of is going from awareness to engagement with a new product, to inquiry, to ultimately sales. And we want to also explore, building on what Anita said. We want to explore where and how does farm radio play? Where does farm radio play with awareness of a new product? Where does it play with engagement? You know, and that's where we get to the click-throughs to a website. So where along that customer journey, as farmers are looking at new products, or even, you know, looking for information about existing products, where does farm radio play along that customer journey? I think it's going to be fascinating. I'm looking forward to, you know, working with Anita and the team and building this and putting this together. And I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of it, and building on the great research and the great results that we already have. It's going to be fascinating. They're speechless, Anita. You did a great job. Great job going through all of that.
Thank you all for the work that you've done on this and for sharing this information with us. I really look forward to seeing, you know, the next round of research too. It sounds like it's going to be very exciting, very different.
Yep. All right. Looks like everybody has their quest. Lots of info. Thanks for sharing. We will, this group, those of you who participated here, we will send out a follow-up with this slide deck, because it does have a few extra slides that Anita put in that are not available on the website. So we'll get this out to everybody. And with that, if there are no other questions or comments, I think we can wrap up a few minutes early here.